Welcome to another episode of Tech Marketing Trends, where we dive deep into the dynamics of technology, sales, marketing, and innovation shaping our future. Today, we're thrilled to have a special guest with us, Ben Benzau, the author of Built to Innovate and the former dean of INSEAD. And Ben has spent over 2 decades teaching, consulting, and leading in the field of innovation, transforming the way of organizations think about and implement innovation at their core. His work emphasizes not just the outcome of innovation, but the process and the culture that enable it. And today, Ben will share his insights on how organizations can hardwire innovations into their DNA, making it a fundamental part of their operations. With that short introduction, Ben, welcome to Tech Marketing Trends. It's an honor to have you with us.
Well, good morning, Jacob. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here. Just a little note. I was not the dean of INSEAD, but I was the dean of executive education at INSEAD. So
Sorry
I'm
about that. Yeah. Okay.
a professor. So my introduction is for the editors. I'm a professor at INSEAD and in Fontainebleau near Paris. All in all, I've spent, I would say, 20 years doing research, teaching, and consulting on innovation. And I fundamentally help organizations build their own internal innovating capabilities. So I spent doing my research. I've studied close to 100 companies. In the private sector, in the public sector, in different industries, from startups in the Silicon Valley, where I spent 2 years studying, researching them in San Francisco, small and medium-sized enterprises, all the way to large industrial conglomerates. And I came across some fascinating companies that literally managed to transform themselves into major innovation powerhouses. And the surprise to me was that many of these companies were old, established organizations operating in very traditional industries. And I mean, to come to maybe a question that you might have, this is the reason why I wanted to write a book. I wanted to tell the story of these companies, document some of the key insights, and more importantly, develop a set of concepts, which we will talk about, some frameworks and a toolkit that can be shared with a wider audience.
Yeah, awesome. And so interesting. And I think a lot of companies these days, especially now with AI revolution going on, and everybody feels, oh shit, we're getting behind if we don't step up our game and move faster, maybe, innovate more and quicker and so on. So there's definitely some kind of stress around this area. So I think it's really interesting to hear and so forth. So let's dive into this a little bit and talk about, you have so much experience in this area. So maybe we should start a little bit from the top here and just define how, every company needs to come up with a new product or new offering every now and then, but how would you define an innovation or innovating? And I know you do a distinction between them as well.
Yes, actually, as I was explaining, I was actually spending a lot of time looking at innovation and following the regular approach, which is to look for the most kind of celebrated, well-known innovating companies, and I ended up, of course, in Silicon Valley. But as I was explaining during the research, I kind of a little bit changed the way I was thinking a little bit. And in the end, I developed a whole new narrative about innovation. And I might get into the details of this new narrative. And fundamentally, I found out that innovation is not only about big disruption, big bang innovations. It's also about continuous and systematic innovation. I found that innovation is not about only I'm sorry for your audience, it's not only about the high-tech organizations. It's not only about companies like Amazon, Apple, or Tesla, or entertainment companies like Marvel or Netflix. In fact, I found that anybody can innovate. I found that innovation can be done by anybody within the organization. Actually, innovation is everybody's business. And maybe the one of the third pillar in my kind of new narrative, I might add some others later, is that innovation is not only the sole responsibility of senior leaders or some specialist within the organization in R&D or tech development. In fact, I found that everyone in the organization, the whole organization, as a matter of fact, can contribute to innovation. And this is, by the way, to come back to your initial question, where speaking to people about innovation in organizations, I found out that, as a matter of fact, the word innovation itself is very intimidating. It triggers anxiety and stress, particularly for frontline employees. And I mean, I teach a lot about innovation, as you understand, and I find that many people who come to the innovation training, they assume that their boss expects them to come up with the next breakthrough product or to uncover a whole new market space. And that in itself creates a lot of pressure for them, and they hate this. So now, having uncovered, having kind of realized this common pattern, now, when I teach innovation, I simply don't use the word innovation. Instead, I refer to innovating, or I simply talk about to innovate, the verb to innovate. And then something curious happened in the class. The sense of fear and tension, anxiety dissipates. The reason, I think, is that innovating as a verb does not refer to a product or an outcome or a result. When you say innovation and ask people to give you examples of innovation, this is an exercise I typically do in a classroom when I start. I ask people, can you give me, what comes to mind for you when you think about innovation? And typically they will tell you about a great product, a great company, a great brand, a genius leader. And that's why it creates pressure for people. If the CEO says, we need innovation, immediately they think we need to have a breakthrough product. But if you talk about innovating, people associate innovating or the verb to innovate with an activity, a process, a behavior, a set of actions, an attitude or behavior that can be learned, something that can be practiced, that can be even better, can be supported by tools and techniques and structured processes. So, I mean, to summarize, if innovation, think of innovation as the tip of the iceberg, the impressive peak visible above the water, then innovating represents all that is happening beneath the water level. It is the collective capabilities of everyone within the organization that lies there waiting to be activated. So my focus is usually not to talk about innovation, because the innovation is the output. I'm more interested in the process, and in particular, the process of building the collective capability. I call it the collective genius, not the individual genius, the collective genius of the organization. How do you build that capability within the organization? And once the capability is built, that might or might not, we don't know, we can't guarantee, might deliver innovation, what is above the water level. So that's the metaphor I use.
Wow, interesting. So super interesting. And so your take on innovation is that it's not the big idea or the super smart scientist that comes up with a new revolutionary product that is innovation in its core, but rather finding the culture, the processes, and the ability to involve the whole company.
Well, of course, I'm not kind of discarding the existence of genius innovators, superstar innovators, of breakthrough innovations. But what I'm saying is that there's another type of innovation. I mean, of course, now we hear about Steve Jobs, we hear about Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, but not every company can have the chance to have a Steve Jobs on their staff. So the only thing I'm saying is that, of course, if you have a genius in the organization, please could take good care of him or her. That's what I'm saying. But not every company has a chance to have that. So what I'm saying is that there's also another type of innovation. I mean, let me maybe kind of give you maybe a couple examples of what I'm talking about. I mean, in particular, when you think about old established organizations, I followed a company, Fiskars, manufacturing company based in Finland. I mean, I'm sure people know about them. They're best known for their orange, iconic orange scissors. They make cutting tools, tableware,
knives,
outdoor equipment for gardening and other things. And for me, Fiskars is a very good example. It's an excellent example of a company that has managed to enter a whole new industry and be very successful at it. And their approach to innovation is methodical, continuous, and systematic. So just to give you an example, to better understand the job to be done, I mean, this is design thinking language, the job to be done of their customers in the gardening business, they conducted an in-depth ethnographic study in the life, in the journey of their home gardeners. So they look at the whole journey of their home gardening customers, what happens before, during, and after they use Fiskars tools. And through this research, they made a significant discovery. They realized that watering was an essential task, was a fundamental task in the gardening journey of their customers. And they also realized that they themselves had the design tools and the technological capabilities, the technologies to develop a highly differentiated solution to the watering problem. One solution that none of the existing players in this industry could even think of. So as a result, instead of opting for the conventional wall-mounted rack where you store your hose, Fiskars developed an all-in-one portable device. They called it the water wheel. So this is an innovative product that features wheels. It has 300-degree, freedom of movement, and it is fitted with all sorts of variety of accessories for different uses, like watering a plot for a long period of time, or setting up a play area for the kids. Now, Water Wheel actually has won many design awards, and it has proven to be a very successful, very profitable addition to the Fiskars product line. But now what is important is that watering was not the business in which Fiskars was competing. This is a new industry that they entered through their approach to methodical continuous and systematic innovation. And I've seen many other examples within Fiskars of this kind of successful innovation. And this is what this approach to systematic and continuous innovation has made them very successful, very profitable, and a very innovative organization. So this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. This is so that people don't misunderstand. When I talk about continuous and systematic innovation, this is not about incremental innovation. This is what we learned from the Japanese companies in the 80s and 90s. This is about companies that enter new markets. And these are, I mean, think about Fiskars, 400-year-old company. These are not startups, but they have been able to enter new industries. And the way they've been doing that is by building their collective capability and their obsession, if you will, and with innovation, and the fact that innovation has become a habit. It has become an internal, I mean, people think of it as a culture. I like to also refer to the notion that it is a habit that is embedded within the organization. I hope this makes it a bit clear what I'm talking about.
Yes, it does. And that's, I think we're a lot of listeners here, including me, who can relate to Fiskars. And it's a fantastic company. And yeah, very good example. And for us who runs companies or departments now and feel, oh shoot, I would love my department or my organization to be inspired by Fiskars and pumping out new interesting products that the customers love and you make a better profit of and things like that. What are the key stepping stones here that you have identified in organizations similar to Fiskars that do this really well?
So I mean, again, maybe during our conversation, I can add other examples. But here we're talking about organizations. I mean, by the way, I wanted to make clear that all what I'm talking about, especially if we have time to talk about the techniques, the tools, the methodology that I've developed, all of this also is relevant, appropriate, and applies to startups, to tech companies. I'm focusing on all established organizations to kind of highlight the fact that any company can innovate. This is not only about sexy startups and high-tech companies. I mean, I've in the book you will see there are even examples of public service companies, government agencies. So the fundamental idea here is that anybody can innovate. Number one, anybody can innovate. There's no kind of special talent that is required. Innovating, you remember when I was talking about innovating instead of innovation? If you ask somebody, deliver an innovation, as I told you, people will freeze. But if you tell them, okay, why don't we do some innovating activity? You can follow a process, you can use some tools. So anybody can do innovating or be engaged in innovating activities. And the other thing also, which is very important, is that you can innovate in everything you do. There's always this obsession, and I understand where it's coming from, and it's totally understandable, with product and technology. But you can innovate in your processes. You can innovate in services. You can innovate in functions. I mean, for me, the fundamental starting point is whether you have a customer or not. If you have a customer, internal or external, B2B or B2C, then you can innovate. Because innovating is about creating value, right? Well, in fact, let me come back because I think you started me, I think, in the right place, which is about that we're focusing not on innovation, but on innovating. So now let's go and deep dive in what innovating means. Again, with the objective of lowering the anxiety and lowering the bar about what is innovating, not innovation. When you have innovation, you know it. Innovating for me is simply looking for ideas, is looking for new ideas. And of course, these ideas need to be, of a certain quality. But you need to de-emphasize, demystify a little bit the notion that anybody can be looking for new idea. And then people need to ask themselves two questions. Is my new idea creating value for a customer? And would it be creating value for my organization? So I think this is where it all starts, is to kind of, as I insist, is to give permission to everyone within the organization, give them permission to innovate. And then if they don't know how to do it, you can give them tools, you can give them techniques. So anybody can innovate. You can innovate in everything you do. As soon as you have a customer, you can innovate. And then to be able to become an innovating company, you need to embed this habit of innovating. And again, I'll come back again as you will certainly be interested in specific examples, but what I found in common between all of these companies that I'm referring to, I mean, I gave you only one example, but I'll talk about others. What do they have in common? Again, I looked at patterns and I found a few things in common. And what I found that they have in common is, like, if you think about how does an innovating company operate? So if you open the hood and you look underneath, you realize that these companies, they operate with two engines. I call these two engines. They have one engine, which I call the execution engine. And this is the space and time and processes and structures and the things that within the organization are there to execute, to implement the strategy of today. But what these companies, Fiskars and others that I will probably mention as well, what do they have in common? That they have this other engine, which I call the innovating. I mean, we can call it the innovation, but I like to, to just stay consistent with my point, I call it the innovating engine. And this is something very concrete, and I'll come back to how it works and maybe give you a specific example. This is a time and space within the organization where employees, and I insist, everyone is given permission to innovate. And people are supported, they are offered training, they are offered the resources so that they can innovate. And this space and time is fully legitimized. It is fully protected. So these two engines, in a sense, they're humming and they're functioning simultaneously at the same time, right? So any employee, of course, most of their time, let's not kid ourselves, most of their time is in execution mode. They're delivering on what, they're hired for. But they also have permission. They're encouraged to spend, on a regular basis. Now, the frequency depends on the metabolism of the organization, right? They are expected, they are encouraged to spend some time doing some form of innovating activity. It could be an innovation project that they running themselves. It could be helping a team in another department where you need diversity, when you need their expertise. They could be spending some time helping another team. But the important thing here is that everybody has a conscience that innovation is part of their job. It's part of their job. And there is a visible space. This is very important. You see, when I do the research, or when I help companies, I always ask to do a little audit of the company beforehand. And I always ask people the same question, which is, where does innovation lie in your organization? And as you can imagine, very typically, it's, if it's a manufacturer, they'll point me to R&D, to some specialists. But when you talk to some of these innovating companies, you realize that they start to point it all around the company. They point to the marketing department, they point to the sales department, because innovation is everywhere. But this innovating space has to be visible. People should be able, so some of these companies, when I say, where does innovation lie in your organization, they're able to tell me who are the people within the organization who are the innovation champions, who are the innovation ambassadors, where to get training, where to get support. So again, here, an example can speak better. So let me highlight this example that I studied called Bayer, the pharmaceutical global giant.
Yeah.
Now, everybody, of course, is aware of Bayer, and Bayer is well known for its fantastic R&D capability and their ability to develop, like, huge scientific achievements. But what I discovered is that in 2014, with the board, they decided to create what I call an innovating engine, and I'll show you what they did. Because they wanted to enlist and leverage the innovating capability of the whole organization, the 100,000 of employees working for Bayer. So what did they do? First, they made the board, the whole board, responsible for innovation. Then they selected 80 senior managers, senior executives across country regions and the main global functions. And these senior executives were there to support the board on innovation. So they were called innovation ambassadors. And these ambassadors, they spent most of their time with middle managers, explaining about innovation, advocating for innovation, training the middle managers, supporting them. And then what they did is very interesting. They trained and certified 1,000 innovation coaches, which were then activated across the whole organization. Another thing also to support the front line, they created a platform, a digital platform called WeSolve. So any employee across the organization can post a problem that they're dealing with on WeSolve and invite insights and ideas about how to solve the problem. Now, they showed me some of the statistics. At the time, they had more than 40,000 people across the organization that have engaged with WeSolve. But Jacob, the most interesting statistics for me was then when it showed me that two-thirds of the best ideas that were posted on WeSolve came from a department or functional units different from the one where the problem was posted in the first place. So you see, this is very concrete. If you are an employee, you know that innovation is at the core. The board is responsible. You know, they have the innovation ambassadors. They have this innovation training unit with 1,000 coaches activated. So this is something very, very physical, very specific. So people know about it. So it's, and then maybe I'll stop here to give you a chance to maybe think about maybe a follow-up question. But what I want to insist here is that this we know they have R&D.
Yeah.
Okay. So R&D is still churning, new molecules and,
Yeah.
But there they were able to bring in, leverage the innovating capability of all these people within the organization. And they did it by making very concrete decisions, taking actions, right? Communicating, creating units, giving people some specific tasks, responsibilities. So here, just to finish, what I want to highlight is that this innovating engine, in a sense, I like to speak about it the same way we speak about the execution engine. And when we talk about an organization, we often talk about its execution engine. In fact, we don't make the distinction. So we talk about its structure, we talk about its processes, and we talk about its culture. So for me, this is the same way I like to think. If you say, oh, I want to increase my innovating capabilities within my organization? So I would say, think about how to build your innovating engine. Try to tell me what is the structure, the governance structure of that. What are the processes that are built into the organization for innovating? And what is the culture? What is the culture when people are engaged in this innovating space and time? Okay.
So interesting. Thank you for laying that example out. And so interesting to see how a big company like Bayer do. If we take that analogy and break it down to a smaller company, would you say the same approach Bayer took on a huge level would work in a smaller company with, you know, somewhere around 50 to 500 employees or something like that, you know? Or is there another set of processes and principles that work in that kind of size?
Actually, I would say, I mean, on purpose, you know, just for the sake of the argument, on purpose, I took Bayer because it's a large, hierarchical. I mean, when you think, you know, the fundamental part, of course, the fundamental part of how Bayer operates, it's its execution engine. We know that. So I took on purpose, you know, a very difficult example because this is a large, hierarchical, you know, organization. And even them, they managed to do that. So I would almost say that it might be even easier if you're a small size organization, or even startups. Startups, they don't have many of these problems because they have much less layers. Very often people who are working, because the layers are less, they are closer to the customer. So you don't need to have the same level of machinery and building the governance structure as you have maybe for a company like Bayer. So I would say that the principles are basically the same, is that you need to create a space, a time, protect it, legitimize it, where everyone in the organization, they know that they have permission to innovate. I mean, I always, you know, people notice that I insist on that. If you don't give people the permission to innovate, well, guess what? They won't innovate. So first, there must be a strong sense that they have permission to innovate. And again, when I say even small, it's easier for small and medium-sized organizations. The important thing is to highlight that there's not one element. It's a composition of different elements, and I will try to outline that because I've built a framework to how to build this innovating engine. So it's not just one thing. It's like a puzzle. It's a mosaic, and now it doesn't have to be top down or bottom up. It can be middle out, but there are a few things that you have to do. So you have to really make sure that people understand that innovation, they have permission. So for people to innovate, they need three things, basically. They need to feel that they are allowed. They have permission to innovate. Once they feel, this might surprise you, Jacob, but when I do my research, I found out that when I engage with the front line, they have no problem with innovation. They are very, very keen on innovation. They would love to innovate, and they do. They effectively do innovate a lot. The problem is not there. So the problem is, and I'll come back to it. The problem very often is at the middle level, the middle managers. But the front line, if you give them permission, then they need to feel capable. So they need to, know how to do it. In a much more orderly and much more systematic way. So they need training, they need tools, they need time, they need maybe resources. And the third thing that they need is to feel motivated. So they need, because they like to do it, they like to feel that, it's recognized, it's acknowledged. When they do something, they don't get punished for doing it. Is that in fact this is something that is encouraged but also rewarded, and it doesn't have to be financial rewards. I mean, we can come back to it if it's necessary, but they need to feel that this is something not only they're allowed to do it, but it is desired, and when they do it, they are acknowledged for it. So now, what I discovered in these innovating engines of these different companies, I found out that, as I said it earlier, everyone has a contribution to make. So frontline people, middle managers, and senior leaders all have a role to play in building this innovating engine and nurturing it. So typically, and then this, let me say something else. This innovating engine, just like the execution engine, you remember it has a structure, it has processes, and it has a culture, right? So what I found out is that the innovating engine usually had three kind of processes. Like, in execution, we have strategy, we have budgeting and reporting, and then we have execution and lots of operational processes. So what I found a way to explain and discuss the innovating engine is to see that there are three processes that are important for an innovating engine. One is, I call it the creation process. So the creation process is the process by which the organization generates new ideas. So people who have a big role to play in it is the front line, frontline employees, because they are the ones who are facing, on a daily basis, they are facing the customers. But also another very important component in innovation is not only customers, but also non-customers. So they are the ones who have to learn how to listen to the customer with empathy, listen what I call, and I come back to it later if you need, they need to listen to the voice of the customer, but also to the silence of the customer. And they need to listen to what the customer is not telling them. The customer is not telling them about something because either they don't know about the problem they're having or the need they're having, or because they know of the problem, but they don't think it's your job to solve it for me. But what I found in many of these examples is that if you can solve a problem for your customer, a problem they don't think it's your job to fix it, but you do it, I can guarantee you, Jacob, they'll love you. And then the third thing that frontline people need to learn how to do is to learn from non-customers. So this is frontline. Now, I have to admit that the biggest surprise for me in my research was the importance of middle management. I found that middle managers are essential. They are vital to innovation. Without them, innovation does not happen. And what is really interesting, as I said, frontline people, they're facing customers all the time. So they understand the need of innovation. They want to have new solutions. They want to find ways to solve the problem of the customers. Senior leaders, they're facing the competition. They're facing, digital transformation. They're facing all, for them, innovation is a no-brainer. It's the middle manager layer who are shielded from this direct pressure from the outside. And remember, they are the ones who are responsible for the execution. They're not trained in innovation. So, but at the same time, you remember, they are the ones who can give permission. They are the one who can support the front line when they're trying to innovate. So this is the conundrum we are. So we need to, so you remember what Bayer did? Because middle managers, when their team comes to them and say, we have this great idea we want to work on, they don't know what to do. They're not trained in innovation. So what is important is that the middle managers, they know that there's a resource within the organization. So either it can be the innovation training units, the 1,000 coaches within Bayer. Other organizations that I studied, like BASF, also had a central unit. Samsung, I looked also, they have a central unit where people, we're not talking about R&D, yeah? These are people who are specialists of innovation. They're specialists of design thinking. They're specialists of systematic innovation. They're specialists of blue ocean strategy. And these people, they train people in organization, and as a bootstrapping process, these people coach other people. So these organizations they have a wide network of local innovation coaches or innovation coordinators who can support the teams locally so that they take away the pressure from the middle managers. So you see, you need to, and for instance, I can give you the example of what Allianz, the
insurance company,
financial insurance company did to kind of motivate middle managers. In the UK operations, what they did is that they created a league table for innovation for all the operations within the UK. So now you can imagine that no middle manager, right, in the UK wanted to be at the bottom of that league table on innovation. So that created kind of this incentive for people to create an atmosphere within their team for innovation. So this is what I, just not actually now it's not a joke anymore. It's, I say it seriously. I have a motto for middle managers. I tell them, give permission and make other people jealous. You know, as we say for frontline people, we say, this is the ultimate Silicon Valley motto, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Which in a sense, if you give permission to people to innovate, they don't need to ask for forgiveness. You see, it puts innovation as a rebel kind of thing to do, you're not supposed to innovate, so you need to just do it and then ask forgiveness. No, if you give permission to your team to innovate, and if they innovate even in their own local space, if the HR department comes up with a new way to recruit students that is really innovative, you will make other people jealous as a middle manager. It will reflect on you as a manager. You're not the one. See, this is the thing, is that a lot of middle managers think that they are the ones to innovate. No, they are the ones who have to create the atmosphere where employees feel that they are allowed, they are capable and motivated to do it.
Wonderful. I love that. And I can't agree more that the middle managers or the team leaders are the knit in the organization, and they need to be fully buy-in. And I think one problem in many organizations is the entropy of, nobody really taking the extra step to innovate. Maybe there's conflicting incentives, you need to keep your budget and sales numbers, while, no, we're working on a new idea here, So it's always hard to align everything.
It's always the same thing. If innovating is something that only you need to be a specialist, you need to be a genius, the bar is very high. So it's going to be even more difficult to get the breakthrough. But if innovating, it's just like, something that you do, or you do innovating activities. I'm not saying, I'm insisting on this. I'm not saying that people should be of course, we would like them to come up with great ideas, but the important thing is to build the muscle. And you build the innovating muscle by practice. And you always start to practice with small weights. And gradually, you build it into the habit. And here the idea is saying, okay, innovation, we know, except, I'm not talking about even maybe the genius. I don't know. I haven't done the research there, but innovation is really a numbers game. We know the stage gate process, the funnel.
Yeah.
You need a lot of ideas to start with, and then you funnel them. So how do you, everything else being equal, how do you increase the number of ideas that come into the funnel?
Yeah.
Well, everybody gets involved. Not only a few specialists, everybody. You multiply the number. Where do you look? Not only products, everywhere. Look into your processes.
Yeah.
Look into your functions. And how often do you do it? You wait for a crisis, or you just do it on a regular basis? So you see, you multiply people by occasions, by time, and everything else being equal, statistically, you're increasing the number of small, of course, we're not talking about big ideas, small ideas. But it is then, by the way, another role for middle managers,
Yeah.
not only to create the environment for the middle manager, for the front line to feel that they have permission, that they have the support and motivated, but they are the ones who are at the right level of elevation within the organization to connect ideas, to connect innovators, to connect resources. So you asking me, you know, I said frontline, their job is really to keep, you know, listening to the voice and the silence of the customer and the non-customer. So they are the ones who bring these jewels, this rough thing, you know, that comes from the market, you know. Mm-hmm. The middle managers, they create the safety, they create the motivation for these people to understand that this is also part of their job. They're not necessarily incentivized on that, by the way. Huh? I always insist on that. People say, oh, should you put an incentive for frontline on innovation? No, because then you will kill it. The incentive should be on middle managers, not on frontline.
Ah.
Right? Like the UK Allianz example. If your team innovates, you get a bonus. You get your team to present in front of the board. Your team, you know, gets an award. It reflects on you as a middle manager. You don't need to be the ones coming up with the idea, your team. And then the senior leaders, they are the ones who, you know, have to nurture this third process. You know, I was talking about three processes: creation process, integration is the connecting that I just talked about, and the third process is what I call reframing process. You know, like the execution engine frames the strategy for today. To allow people to innovate, you need to reframe the organization.
Interesting. I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
When this works well, we'll see what happens at Bayer and Fiskars. But have you seen it, you know, or maybe rephrasing the question, like, is there any things that might, even well-intended, will kill the innovation climate or the result of the innovation? You know, where do you see companies go wrong in this area?
Yeah, I mean, it's always the same thing. And that comes back, maybe actually it's a nice follow-up to the last thing I was saying about the role of senior leaders. So you remember I said frontline, middle managers, and senior leaders. So I showed how, you know, the ideas come from the front line. The middle managers are the crux. You know, without them, the whole thing falls apart. But the senior leaders are the number one. They are the ones who have they are in the position to legitimize innovation, to put innovation at the core of strategy. Very often, if they're not the first one to give permission, it's not going to happen. Second, and by the way, the way they create this atmosphere, this understanding that innovation is central is physically them getting involved. So I'll talk maybe about this example later, but to come back to your question, very often what I see that organizations they decide, particularly at the senior level, that innovation is very central. They engage the whole organization in a transformation journey. And then, you know, in a few months, the senior leaders are there, you know, hitting people with slides and speeches and all that. And then at some point, the attention goes away. And this is the killer, is when people start to see that the members of the board or very senior people are not coming to the innovation events or the innovation training for middle managers, then they feel that it's now it's a training program. It's just a training program. It's not, there's no sense of urgency anymore. So I think one of the the killers is when people realize that the organization is going through, it has jumped to the next initiative. That this was just kind of a training program, and I think this is very often what kills this thing, is when people think that, oh, we're done with it. So it's very important that there's consistency, that there's a language that is embedded in the organization. It has, you see, you don't take your foot from the pedal until you realize that it has become embedded in the organization. That some of these processes have become, not only routines, but maybe rituals. You see, once these habits, it's just like when you're on a program for yourself, whether this is for your health or your diet or whatever. Once it's become habitual, that you do it without thinking, that it becomes a necessity, then you can lift. You don't have to be mindful all the time about it. So I think this is the same thing here, is that if the organization, because of course, like, as you say, frontline, middle managers, everybody is busy and there's a lot of pressure from everywhere. And then if during a few months, there's this effort made on innovation, and then the pressure is lifted. So people think, oh, okay, so we're done. We're done. So that was a program. That was an innovation program. That's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
It has to become, that's why I call it an engine. It has to become embedded with clear roles, tasks. The processes are embedded. You remember, when was it? Maybe in the 90s, we had this great infatuation with quality. You remember the quality movement?
Yeah.
QM, Six Sigma.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, people don't talk about it, but this is one of the greatest success we've had in management.
Yeah.
Now, we don't talk about it because it's embedded.
Yeah.
It's embedded. It's there, right? You don't have this, this drum rolling on Six Sigma training. I mean, everybody does it. Everybody knows about it. So I've seen some, by the way, I've seen some of these organizations, very interesting, by the way, connection here. I've seen some organizations who created these programs like BSF. They had this program called Perspective, where they were making all of the middle managers go through training in innovation, in quality movement, in cost control, across multiple units. But then this training, once they got critical mass, every new employee was being initiated into that. So then they could take it off. Mm-hmm. But by that time, it was part of, I would say it was part of the DNA. And I think what kills these things is when people are impatient, they think they're there, when in fact, the new culture is not embedded. The processes have not become rituals yet.
Ah, wonderful. Good question. So for companies like Bright Vision, I'm the CEO of Bright Vision, and we're a small company around 100 employees. And for smaller firms like us, if we now feel after this podcast, wow, we need to work on our innovation engine and all that, where should I and everybody else listening into this in this situation start? What's the first steps, and where should I start looking?
So, I mean, again, not knowing your organization well enough, I could imagine that there might be multiple ways to do that, and then you can connect the dots. I mean, one is usually what I see very often is the temptation to do it top down. Mm. So top down, as I'm sure you know, people are very attentive. They spend a lot of time trying to listen to what you're saying and trying to read through what you're saying. So your communication, your kind of strategic vision, the way innovation is part of the strategic core or not, that is very, very palatable to people. So in a sense, if you do it top down, it starts from you, how you are through your own actions. So for instance, I've seen some CEOs who were themselves doing some of the innovation training, being part of the innovation committees, reviewing innovation. There are many ways for you to project to the rest of the organization that you believe that innovation is the future of the organization, that it is essential. Then you create maybe some, referring to my engine, some visible, structure. Are there some roles, some tasks, some responsibilities? Some people are responsible for something. Are there relationships that can speed up, how ideas don't have to go through the hierarchy, can come to you or to your innovation committee quickly? So these are very structural things that, usually the way to explain to people what is structure is something you can change with a couple memos. So this is, or emails, So these are the things you can do, the way you communicate. So this is top down, and then that structure will create, the training, will create the space where the people can spend, different companies have different ways of doing it. They have like an umbrella time, like, can spend 10% of their time on innovation, or everybody is assigned to some sort of innovation activity, but it has to be something physical, something real. It cannot be just a conceptual thing. Oh, we want to innovate.
No.
People have to understand what it means. And if I want to engage, where do I go? What is in it for me? So this is a top-down approach. It could be otherwise. It could be bottom-up. And this is like, if some person comes up with an interesting idea, how is this person made, glorified? How is this person, acknowledged, recognized? I mean, it's all this notion if make other people jealous. You don't tell people you should innovate too. Somebody who's done a great thing, you make sure everybody knows about that and how great it was. And I can guarantee you other people will go to that person and ask her, how did you do that? How did you do that? And then, of course, people will start to ask, I also want to innovate, like, I want to be like her. Well, then, you have to answer, okay, so now you start to create something, but this is bottom up, right? So people come up with a great idea, you glorify them, then the organization is hungry, wants to, so now they want, where do we get to know how to innovate? And then you start to institutionalize from the bottom. So again, I mean, I don't know if
Wonderful.
I'm
I love
speaking
it.
nonsense
I
to
love
you.
it.
I don't know if it resonates for you, but I can see a top down or bottom up or middle out.
Yeah. Awesome, Ben. Wow. You have shared so generously of your competency and engagement for innovation and and the whole process and everything around it. Thank you so much for that. And just as a closing question here, people who loved your podcast here or the discussions we have had, where can they find more about your book, about you and your content, and when can they connect with you?
Okay, so I mean, easy one is to search me on LinkedIn, right? Ben Bensao, and then I have actually a blog post that I have a blog post that I try to submit every once in a while on. I have a website. It's benbensao.com. benbensao.com. There's a website with readings, with other videos, and of course people can contact me anytime. Yeah.
Wonderful. And your book, Built to Innovate, it's on Amazon and wherever you can buy books, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
It was fun, Jacob. I liked it.